Walt Whitman, the quintessential American poet, often cited with Emily Dickinson as the two poets which really sort of set and defined what it meant to be a poet in America. Emily Dickinson and Walt Whitman paired this way even by the incomparable literary critic Harold Bloom. Now, here's a poem today titled Dalliance of the Eagles. Eagles, obviously, the American bird, the American symbol. Can Walt Whitman write a poem about eagles and the poem itself not be about America? I think so. Today's poem is Dalliance of the Eagles by Walt Whitman. This poem will appear in two separate playlists here on the channel. Number one being the Walt Whitman playlist, but number two, obviously, being the Poetry Discussions playlist here on the channel. Dalliance of the Eagles reads as such: Skirting the river road, my forenoon walk, my rest. Skyward, in a sudden muffled sound, the dalliance of the eagles, the rushing amorous contact high in space together, the clinching interlocking claws, a living, fierce, gyrating wheel, four beating wings, two beaks, a swirling mass, tight, grappling, in tumbling, turning, clustering loops, straight downward, falling, till o'er the river, poised, the twain yet one, a moment's lull, a motionless stir, balance in the air, then parting, talons loosening, upward again on slow, firm pinions, slanting their separate, diverse flight. She, hers, he, his, pursuing. I think this poem is not just another American experience. Did you know that the bird to symbolize America was almost not the eagle? Benjamin Franklin wanted it to be the turkey. This would have been a terrible poem if it were a fight between turkeys. But I said I don't think that this poem is about America. I think that this poem is about something much more personal than that. I think that this poem is, in fact, something different than that altogether. Sure, if you want to read overtones of patriotism into it, uh, I'll allow it, right? You can do that. But I think there is something more interesting going on, and I want to start maybe right here. Maybe just with that small quote. Skirting the river road, my forenoon walk, my rest, skyward in air a sudden muffled sound. If we stopped right there, if we didn't title this Dalliance of the Eagles, if we didn't have immediately after this the Dalliance of the Eagles, I think hey, let's do it. So unfortunately, Walt Whitman was sort of inconsiderate and did not stop to think what his poems would look like in Microsoft Word. So we don't have the exact line breaks that I can communicate on the screen for you, and that is unfortunate, and for it I apologize. But we're going to mess with this a little bit. We're going to make this look maybe a bit more like a Bukowski poem. If this poem opened like this: skirting the river, road, my forenoon walk, my rest, skyward in a sudden muffled sound, this would not strike you particularly that it was about anything except for the human experience, anything except for the experience of Walt Whitman himself. We would imagine this poem with this beginning and these line breaks to be Walt Whitman communicating what it is to be on his forenoon walk, what it means to be his at rest. We would imagine these motions, the skyward in air, a sudden muffled sound, to be his thought projections into the astral plane, something like that. We would think that this was, in fact, Walt Whitman saying what it is like to be this poet, that on his afternoon walks, when he is at rest, his mind is expanding. And then these eagles, it would be much easier to imagine them, the two of them, representing Walt Whitman himself. With the line breaks as sparse as they are in Walt Whitman's poetry, we are given bigger ideas at a time and not necessarily allowed to break them down in real time the way that they need to be in order to digest them. So, if these eagles are representing Walt Whitman, it is Walt Whitman at odds with himself. It is Walt Whitman in battle with Walt Whitman. Sounds a little strange, perhaps, but we are, all of us, two poems ago, I think in this very playlist, we talked about the split brain experiments, the split brain phenomenon, that when you sever the corpus callosum, everyone really is of two minds. You can do the very simple tests of closing one eye, this eye connected to this brain, this eye connected to this brain, and each brain will not know why the other has done what they have done, but they will remember kind of doing it. So you show this brain certain cards and you make them pick out the ones that go together, then you cover this eye, and he knows he checked these cards in coordination with one another, but he doesn't know why, so he has to make up a story. But beyond that, in Walt Whitman himself, possibly, probably, likely, I would say, the most famous quote you will find from Walt Whitman is itself about duality. Well, at least duality, perhaps a little bit more. Do I contradict myself? Very well, then, I contradict myself. I am large, I contain multitudes. Taking that quote into account, this poem becomes much more explainable as Walt Whitman versus the self. So, the rushing amorous contact high in space together. Both of these things are Walt Whitman. The clenching interlocking claws, a living, fierce, gyrating wheel, four beating wings, two beaks, a swirling mass tight grappling in tumbling, turning, clustering loops, straight downward, falling till o'er the river poised, the twain yet one, a moment's lull. So it was not until these grappling ideas, these grappling personalities that are both Walt Whitman passed over the river that they decided to part. So this is maybe a little bit of symbolism over, so running water. It's not the ocean, it's running water. This can be cleansing. This can be a new start. This can be the motion of life, the turmoil of life. This could be all of these things. Running water representing time, oftentimes. So, what is there any symbolism here to be found from the fact that these dueling ideas both represent Walt Whitman and they decide to part ways after crossing over running water? Maybe. I think that what this means is, so the river is there to be crossed. The river is there either to be crossed or to walk alongside. We have Whitman on his afternoon walk. These eagles, both representing Walt Whitman, cross over the water while he is still on the other side. We don't have Whitman crossing, or the speaker, I guess I should say, crossing the river in this poem. It seems to me that perhaps what the greater symbolism here to be had is that our walker, our speaker, is struggling with something on his afternoon walk. These eagles represent the two ideas, the two answers to whatever question it is which is vexing him. They cross over the water and part ways, one of them still pursuing, while our speaker is still on the other side, saying once you cross that river, once you make that leap, once you go over the water, these things will separate and will perhaps be obviated, but you will still be you. That is all I have for this poetry discussion. If you like or appreciate what it is that I do here, hitting the like button really does help me out, as it tells YouTube to share this video with other literature lovers. And if you find yourself here by chance but not design, consider hitting the subscribe button in order to stick around for more literature in the future. There is poetry every Monday. We're currently going through the short stories of Ernest Hemingway. We recently wrapped up Dubliners by James Joyce, a short story by short story journey through that. We are reading Carrie by Stephen King right now, and there is plenty of literature still to be had on this channel. And as always, I hope to see you next time.